Good Wednesday morning, and today we'll be talking about a page that is on John Patrick's website at johnpatrick.ca, and this is under the reading menu on the top. If you click on the reading tab at the top of his website, scroll down, you are going to see a page called Biblical Literacy Quiz. And I'm going to have John talk about why he made that page, what the origin of it is, and how you can use it.
I was sitting in church one Sunday, and the pastor misused a biblical quotation. Oh, that's interesting. I was a little bored, so I had a bit of paper and a pencil, and I started writing down metaphors from the Bible that I thought people wouldn't recognize as from the Bible and would misuse. I'd recently heard a baseball commentator talk about this match being a battle between David and Goliath, and seemed to think that Goliath was going to win. Didn't really know the story, in other words, had just heard that phrase and used it inappropriately. So what you've got on that page is a list of pictures, really, metaphors, or the skeleton of a metaphor from the Bible. It's the King James Version. The reason it's the King James Version is that we didn't have all these other versions till after the Second World War. So all the great literature is not post-Second World War, it's pre-Second World War. So the writers before the Second World War who wrote good books, when they used a biblical metaphor, it would be the King James Version. Shakespeare had the forerunner of the King James Version, obviously. The God's Secretary, the little book that's up there on the side, is a fascinating story of how the King James Version was put together. But Shakespeare has references to the King James Version all the way through, and if you miss them, you miss the point. Now, the first one on that list there, standing amid the alien corn, that occurs in a poem. I'm trying to think whether I can remember where it was. Yeah, I think it's Keats, but it doesn't matter who it is. If that doesn't bring a story into your head, you can't understand what's going on. Because in those 4 or 5 words, the poet can trust that his educated readers get the whole story of Ruth. Ruth was a widow in a foreign land, a refugee, and with her widowed mother-in-law, she goes back to Israel because they can't survive where they are. And she knows that in Israel, at least they make provision for the poor with the gleaning laws. They were not allowed to cut the corners of their fields by Torah. They had to leave it for the poor. So Ruth would be able to go out at harvest time and pick up from the corners of the field enough wheat to keep them alive. So there she is, picking up the corn in the corner of the field. But the owner of the field is there. He doesn't know it, but he's going to marry Ruth, who is related to her, Boaz. So in those few words, you have the whole story of Ruth, and Boaz, of course, is a picture of Christ, the Redeemer. All in 5 words. And if you don't pick up that metaphor, all that is lost on you. It's just something, this sort of boring literature that I have in high school, and nobody ever points out to you what it's all about. Not surprising they don't like Shakespeare. If you don't pull out these things for them to see, and I mean the next one down is eyeless in Gaza. Did your friends get that one when you tried it?
I can't remember. My wife has gotten the most.
She had a proper education. Yeah, good for her. Well, that's in 3 words, the story of Samson. He's eyeless in Gaza because the prostitute cut off his hair, the source of his strength, so the Philistines captured him, they gouged out his eyes, and they kept him for amusement. And he's led into their main meeting hall where they're going to make fun of him, and he asks the boy to take him to the central pillar. And he prays, Lord, his hair has grown again. And he says, Lord, give me back my strength. And he pulls the pillar down and kills himself and all the people that are there. killing more Philistines in his death than he'd killed in his life. All that in 3 words. So eyeless in Gaza is the sort of thing you can say to somebody, things are looking really bad, but you may be eyeless in Gaza. What comes next may be the best thing in your life, the most memorable. And all of them can do that. And there are lots more. If you have some good ones, please send them to me. Now I've got a guy who actually knows how to edit my website and things. I can just add them. They're fun. It's a great way to start Sunday school in September, adult Sunday school. Just photocopy it and give it out, and you've got your first Sunday school, and it will be fun. Also a bit of a shock. And that's why you should have a copy of the King James Version as well. Not because it came down from heaven. It didn't, of course, although some people behave as though it did. But it is the basis of the English language. It's fundamental. You don't know the Bible, you can't read English literature. The reason the moderns who are not educated hate the old literature is that they can't read it. They can read the words but miss the meaning. That's really sad.
Yeah, that is. I'll just make some comments about it. I remember when I learned about this, and we had some friends over. I remember the first time I've done this a couple times where we'll have friends over, we'll be chatting in the living room. The conversation will go a certain direction. I'll bring this up, and then we'll go through it, and it is very eye-opening for people, especially somebody like me or others who just don't have much exposure to the King James Version, and so it can just be really challenging. And I've never gotten usually you get a little, at least for me, a little bit of a bewildered look as you go through this, because I think it is challenging people, and then they realize how much they don't know. And John gives no hints, so it's hard to even figure out where to go when you don't know.
And of course, if you look it up in a modern Bible, you get lost, so you need a King James concordance. But the hardest one is I being in the way.
I being in the way. That's the second to last one.
Yeah.
And don't tell us what it is. One. You can just leave it at that.
No. That spoils it. Because when you do find out, it's more fun. The church I grew up in, they would say that not infrequently. They knew their Bibles very well, because we didn't have pastor in the church I went to, but the Bible was read every Sunday morning. At least 3 or 4 different passages would be read from the congregation. So, as a little boy, at that stage where you have a mind like a steel trap, the great gift I had of growing up in an uneducated environment was that I learned the Bible by heart, so to speak, without even thinking about it. Vast passages of Scripture are there, and they can come back now. I have to go and look up where they're from, but I know the passage, And that was a gift of that church and my mother, who taught Sunday school and read the Bible to me every day before I went to school. So that's an education in its own right.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Thank you, guys. Again, thanks for listening. This was definitely a quick, short one, but maybe it gives you something to do on your next gathering or meal with some friends.